Throughout history, two forces have shaped the rise and fall of civilizations, religion, and political power. These pillars, one rooted in divine belief, the other in governance, have coexisted in an intricate, intertwined relationship. Rulers have relied on religion to legitimize their authority, while religious institutions have depended on political stability for their survival. Together they have defined societies, laws and moral frameworks. From the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the divine pharaohs of Egypt, kings and gods were inseparable. In later eras, the rise of monotheism brought profound shifts, with faiths like Judaism, Christianity and Islam reshaping ideas of authority and justice. Even revolutionary movements like the Protestant Reformation revealed how religion could challenge and transform political power. Today, while the influence of religion on governance has evolved, its impact on laws, values and societal debates endures. This documentary explores how religion and power have intertwined across centuries, molding the world we live in and leaving a legacy that continues to shape humanity. In the vast expanse of ancient China, the relationship between religion and political power took on a unique form, deeply rooted in the moral philosophy of Confucianism, as well as other influential belief systems like Daoism and legalism. Unlike many other ancient civilizations, where divine kingship directly tied rulers to gods, or where rulers were seen as incarnations of deities, ancient Chinese political structures centered around the mandate of heaven, a concept that linked the right to rule with moral conduct and the welfare of the people. The origins of the mandate of heaven can be traced back to the Zhou dynasty, which overthrew the Shang dynasty and justified their rebellion by claiming that the Shang rulers had lost heaven's favor due to their moral corruption. This concept became a central tenet of Chinese political thought, providing a justification for both the establishment and overthrow of dynasties. If natural disasters, famines or social unrest occurred, it was seen as a sign that the current rulers had lost the mandate of heaven and rebellion could be morally justified. The mandate of heaven emphasized the reciprocal relationship between the ruler and the ruled. Rulers were expected to act with benevolence and maintain harmony within their realms, while subjects were expected to remain loyal as long as the ruler fulfilled these moral duties. This idea of moral reciprocity set ancient China apart from many other early civilizations, where rulers often claimed absolute divine authority that could not be challenged. Confucianism, founded by Confucius, emerged during the tumultuous spring and autumn period and the warring states period in China, a time when the Zhou dynasty's power had fragmented and numerous states vied for dominance. Against this backdrop of political instability, Confucius sought to restore social order by proposing a system of governance based on moral principles, personal virtue, and respect for traditional roles. Central to Confucian thought is the idea of ren, which should guide the behavior of both rulers and subjects. Confucius emphasized that rulers should lead by example, demonstrating moral virtue, wisdom, and compassion. Instead of relying on laws and punishments to maintain order, Confucius argued that a virtuous ruler would inspire the people to behave ethically through his own conduct. This concept of rule by virtue stood in contrast to the more coercive methods of control advocated by legalism. Confucianism also stressed the importance of Li in maintaining social harmony. The performance of rituals, both in religious and political contexts, was seen as a way to express and reinforce the hierarchical relationships that held society together. These rituals served to remind individuals of their duties within the family, the community, and the state, and they played a critical role in reinforcing the authority of the ruler. The Confucian ideal ruler was a junzi, or superior person, who possessed both moral integrity and the ability to govern wisely. A junzi ruled not through coercion or fear, but through moral authority, cultivating virtue in both himself and his subjects. Confucius believed that if the ruler embodied these ideals, the state would be harmonious, and the people would naturally follow his example. This concept of the ruler as a moral guide shaped Chinese political thought for centuries, influencing the way emperors and officials were expected to govern. One of the most important aspects of Confucianism in both religion and governance is the concept of filial piety, which refers to the respect and devotion that children owe to their parents and ancestors. Filial piety extended beyond the family unit to the state, where the ruler was seen as the father of the people. Just as children were expected to honor their parents, subjects were expected to show loyalty and obedience to the ruler. This hierarchical relationship between ruler and subject, based on the model of the family, was central to Confucian political philosophy. Filial piety also played a crucial role in religious practices, particularly in ancestor worship, which was a core element of Chinese religious life. The veneration of ancestors was seen as a way to maintain harmony between the living and the dead, as well as to ensure the continued prosperity of the family. This practice was not only a religious duty, but also a political one, as it reinforced the hierarchical order that Confucianism sought to maintain in both the family and the state. The hierarchical nature of Confucianism extended to the structure of government itself. The ideal Confucian state was organized like a family, with the emperor at the top, followed by a strict hierarchy of officials, all of whom were expected to act with moral integrity. The civil service examination system, which was based on Confucian texts, became the primary means of selecting government officials during the Han Dynasty and continued to be a key feature of Chinese governance for centuries. By ensuring that officials were chosen based on their knowledge of Confucian ethics and governance, the examination system reinforced the idea that the state should be governed by virtuous individuals who understood and practiced Confucian principles. While Confucianism provided the dominant framework for governance in ancient China, it coexisted with other philosophical and religious traditions, particularly Daoism. Founded by the semi-legendary figure Laozi, Daoism offered a contrasting view of the world, emphasizing harmony with the natural order and advocating for a more passive, non-interventionist approach to governance. Daoism's influence on political power can be seen in its emphasis on Wu Wei, a principle that encouraged rulers to govern by allowing things to unfold naturally rather than through force or interference. Daoism suggested that the best rulers were those who governed the least, allowing their people to live in accordance with the Tao without the need for strict laws or punishments. In practice, Daoism and Confucianism often complemented each other, with Confucianism providing the moral and ethical guidelines for social and political life, while Daoism offered a more flexible spiritual perspective on how to achieve balance and harmony. Some Chinese rulers, particularly during periods of political instability, turned to Daoist ideas to justify a more lenient or hands-off approach to governance. Daoist thought also influenced religious practices in ancient China, particularly in the realm of rituals for longevity and immortality, which were often associated with the imperial court. Daoist priests conducted rituals aimed at securing the emperor's health and ensuring the stability of the state by aligning it with the natural forces of the cosmos. These rituals, though religious in nature, were also deeply political, as they reinforced the emperor's connection to the divine and his role as the protector of the natural and social order. In contrast to the moral and philosophical governance promoted by Confucianism and the non-interventionist approach of Daoism, legalism offered a more pragmatic and authoritarian vision of political power. Legalism, which gained prominence during the Warring States period, advocated for strict laws, centralized control, and harsh punishments as the means to maintain order and stability in the state. The most famous proponent of legalism was Han Fei, whose writings emphasized the necessity of strict laws and absolute authority to control human behavior, which legalists viewed as inherently selfish and corrupt. Legalism rejected the Confucian ideal of ruling through virtue, arguing that moral appeals were insufficient to maintain social order. Instead, legalists believed that only through a system of rigid laws and harsh punishments could the ruler ensure obedience and stability. Legalism played a central role in the rise of the Qin dynasty, China's first unified empire under Qin Shi Huangdi, who embraced legalist principles to centralize power and impose strict control over his vast empire. Under Qin Shi Huangdi, legalist policies were implemented on a national scale, leading to the standardization of laws, weights and measures, and even the writing system. The state exerted absolute control over the population, and dissent was met with brutal repression, including the infamous burning of books and execution of scholars who opposed the regime's policies. While legalism proved effective in unifying China and establishing the Qin dynasty's dominance, its harsh methods also contributed to the dynasty's eventual downfall. The strictness of legalist rule, combined with the burdens of massive infrastructure projects like the Great Wall and the Terracotta Army, led to widespread resentment among the population. After Qin Shi Huangdi's death, the Qin dynasty quickly collapsed, giving way to the Han dynasty, which adopted a more balanced approach by blending Confucian ideals with legalist administrative techniques. Despite its association with authoritarian rule, legalism left a lasting legacy in Chinese governance. Many of the bureaucratic structures and legal reforms introduced during the Qin dynasty continued to influence Chinese political systems for centuries, even as Confucianism became the dominant ideology. Legalism's emphasis on centralized control, efficient administration, and strict enforcement of laws would be echoed in later Chinese dynasties, particularly during times of political turmoil or external threats. The Han dynasty marked a turning point in the integration of Confucianism into the fabric of Chinese political power. While the early Han rulers initially retained some legalist policies from the Qin dynasty, they gradually shifted towards a governance model that emphasized Confucian moral principles. Under the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, Confucianism was officially adopted as the state ideology, and the Confucian scholar official class began to rise in prominence. The establishment of Confucianism as the official state ideology was institutionalized through the civil service examination system, which required aspiring government officials to demonstrate their knowledge of Confucian classics. This system ensured that the individuals who governed the empire were well versed in Confucian ethics, creating a ruling class that adhered to the principles of benevolence, filial piety, and moral integrity. The examination system also helped to ensure social mobility, as individuals from non-aristocratic backgrounds could rise to positions of power based on merit and education. Under the Han dynasty, the Confucian idea of the emperor as the son of heaven became central to Chinese political thought. The emperor was seen as the intermediary between heaven and earth, responsible for maintaining the harmony of the cosmos by governing with virtue. As long as the emperor ruled in accordance with the principles of Confucianism, showing compassion, upholding justice, and ensuring the welfare of the people, he was believed to possess the mandate of heaven. However, if the emperor became corrupt or oppressive, heaven would withdraw its favor, leading to natural disasters, social unrest, or rebellion. Confucianism's influence on Han governance extended beyond the emperor and the scholar official class. It shaped the way laws were interpreted and applied, with an emphasis on fairness, justice, and the importance of moral education. The family, seen as the fundamental building block of society, was governed by Confucian principles of filial piety and hierarchical respect, mirroring the relationship between the emperor and his subjects. During the Han Dynasty, Confucianism was also used to promote social cohesion and unity within the vast and diverse empire. Confucian rituals, such as the performance of state sacrifices to heaven and the ancestors, reinforced the idea of a harmonious order that connected the emperor, the gods, and the people. These rituals served to legitimize the emperor's rule and to remind both officials and commoners of their place within the broader Confucian social hierarchy. The success of the Han Dynasty in combining Confucianism with centralized governance created a political model that would endure for centuries. Even after the fall of the Han, Confucianism remained the foundation of Chinese statecraft, shaping the political and social structures of subsequent dynasties. As Chinese history progressed, Confucianism continued to dominate the political landscape, but it coexisted with other influential religious and philosophical traditions. By the time of the Tang dynasty, Chinese rulers embraced the idea of the three teachings, Confucianism, Daoism, and Buddhism, which were seen as complementary rather than contradictory. Buddhism, introduced to China from India during the Han dynasty, grew in popularity during the later dynasties, especially the Tang and Song dynasties. While Confucianism remained the primary framework for governance, Buddhism introduced new ideas about ethics, spirituality, and the role of the state in promoting the welfare of the people. Buddhist monasteries played important economic and social roles in many parts of China, and Buddhist teachings on compassion and the impermanence of life influenced both rulers and subjects. However, Buddhism's growing influence sometimes led to tension with the Confucian establishment. In the Tang dynasty, for example, there were periodic efforts to suppress Buddhism, particularly during the reign of Emperor Wuzong, who sought to reduce the power of Buddhist monasteries and reassert Confucian values. Despite these challenges, Buddhism became an integral part of Chinese religious life and continued to coexist with Confucianism and Daoism. During the Song dynasty, a movement known as Neo-Confucianism emerged, which sought to reinterpret and revitalize Confucian thought in response to the challenges posed by Buddhism and Daoism. Neo-Confucian scholars such as Zhou integrated metaphysical elements from Buddhism and Daoism into Confucianism, creating a more comprehensive philosophical system that addressed both the spiritual and ethical dimensions of life. Neo-Confucianism became the dominant intellectual and political ideology of the later dynasties, particularly during the Ming and Qing dynasties. The influence of Confucianism on Chinese governance endured for more than 2 millennia, shaping the political, social, and cultural life of China from the Han Dynasty through to the end of the Imperial period in the early 20th century. Confucian ideals of moral governance, filial piety, and social harmony became deeply embedded in Chinese political thought, influencing not only the way emperors ruled, but also the way ordinary people understood their relationship to the state. Confucianism's emphasis on education, virtue, and the rule of law provided a stable foundation for the Chinese bureaucratic system, ensuring that the government was staffed by capable and ethical officials. The civil service examination system, based on Confucian texts, became a symbol of meritocratic governance, offering a path to political power based on intellectual achievement rather than birth or wealth. However, Confucianism's focus on hierarchy and social order also reinforced a rigid class system that limited social mobility for many people, particularly women and the lower classes. The Confucian ideal of the family as a microcosm of the state placed strict limits on individual freedom, with women expected to be subservient to their fathers, husbands, and sons. Despite its emphasis on virtue, Confucianism also provided ideological support for authoritarian rule, with emperors invoking the mandate of heaven to justify their authority. As China entered the modern era, Confucianism faced significant challenges from both internal and external forces. The fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912 and the subsequent establishment of the Republic of China marked the end of imperial rule, and with it, the official role of Confucianism in governance. The rise of communism in the mid-20th century further eroded Confucianism's influence, as the new regime sought to replace traditional values with Marxist-Leninist ideology. Despite these challenges, Confucianism continues to play a role in Chinese society and politics today. In recent years, there has been a resurgence of interest in Confucian thought, with the Chinese government promoting Confucian values as part of its efforts to build a harmonious society. Confucianism's enduring legacy as a system of ethical governance and social order remains relevant in contemporary China, even as the country navigates the complexities of modernization and global integration.